I wish I could, the woman said, but I don't have a car. Oh my, but you must be parched by now. You look like wilting flowers. You need something to drink. Come with me. I have just the thing. She invited us into her property, a desolate place of land we would have never imagined was inhabited, set far enough back from the road that we hadn't seen it through the trees. I was so relieved to see someone, anyone, that I didn't question her sudden appearance. She was a godsend. I was grateful for the sight of her. Besides, she didn't look like she would be a part of a gang or some kind of kidnapper ring, so we followed the sweet-voiced woman as she led us deeper and deeper into the brush. Past a wasted field and through a graveyard of fallen mesquites we went, listening to her melodic words as she led us away until we came to what we can only describe as an oasis in the desert. Whereas the land we'd just crossed had been populated by husache and scrub, her house was large and impeccably landscaped, like the house in the more affluent neighborhoods of Eagle Pass, with a beautiful garden of flowering plants and herbs. I recognized the orange burst of butterfly weeds and the tall red Indian paintbrushes. But there was so many beautiful plants in the garden, all I could do was smile with joy and serenity. The woman's house was beautiful too, with wide, resplendent windows reflecting the daylight on every side, making it glitter and shine majestically. I thought for a moment we were in a fantasy world, a magical land, a dream come true. The vivacious woman took us through her spacious living room and into a splendid, sunlit kitchen where we were asked to sit along a mahogany table while our hostess poured us glass after glass of ice-cold lemonade. When she had quenched our thirst, she brought us platters full of sweet bread, pumpkin empanadas, pan de huevo, cuernos, and the most delicious marranitos, dense pastries shaped like piggies, made with sweet molasses and full of spicy richness in every morsel. We ate so much sweet bread and consumed so much tart lemonade, we felt gluttonous, but sinfully content. We listened to the lady of the house as she entertained us with her life story, feeling delightfully blessed. Our enchanting hostess was named Cecilia. She was a viuda, a long-suffering widow. Her husband had been a police officer, a detective, who had lost his life in the line of duty, she said as she served us more and more of the delicious sweet bread. She was glad for our company because she lived too far from the nearest town to entertain visitors. Since she was self-sufficient, relying on her garden and animals for sustenance, she didn't know anyone in town. Having no other family to speak of also meant she hadn't had visitors since the day of her marriage. Her only contact with the outside world was her supplies delivery once a month. Our long hot day in the sun was too much to contend with, and soon we felt sleepy and tired. We'd made pigs of ourselves. Now we wanted nothing more than to take a nap in the afternoon heat. "You look tired," Cecilia said, pulling the trays of pastries off the table and placing them back on the counter behind her. "Perhaps you should rest a while." I watched her with half-closed lids as Cecilia moved about the room with slow, gentle movements that mesmerized me. "We should go," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "Come on now," Cecilia said, as she turned off the lights in the kitchen. "I have the perfect spot for a nap. My husband built this cozy little den just for me. Come on, it's right through here." Being so happy to have us in her home, Cecilia made us comfortable in a small nook just off the kitchen, away from the sun and the heat of the day. Like a fairy godmother waving a magical wand, she tapped open cabinet doors and pulled out extra fluffy pillows so that we might rest comfortably on the sofa and recover from our arduous expedition. Those hours resting went by very fast. We slipped in and out of wakefulness, wincing at the soreness of our muscles and thirsting for more of that tart lemonade. Finally, we slept so deeply that we were shocked when we awakened to find the landscape outside the windows in complete darkness. It seemed we had slept the day away in nighttime and descended upon the spacious house like an unexpected guest. "What happened?" Velia asked, yawning as she stretched on a satiny divan chair. Pita's face was illuminated by the light of the moon from an open window. Her cheeks were flushed a bright crimson, sunburnt from our walk this morning. "Where is she?" "Do you think she knows who we are?" Velia asked as she got up and went to peer through the open door into the darkened kitchen. I wondered myself if she got the paper at all way out here. "I hope she doesn't get us arrested," Pita whined, scooting over to sit next to me on the plush sofa. Suddenly, the familiar pangs of guilt hit me again, and I winced. I hated seeing them so concerned. They were little girls. They should be at home, fashioning bracelets out of old aluminum cans or just sitting at the kitchen table playing loteria with Mama. Juanita pushed herself off the couch and stood looking out the window at the darkness outside. "Do you think she's gone? She wouldn't have left us here alone, would she? Girls, are you okay? Come here." Cecilia's musical voice made us all jump, startled. We followed her voice into the living room, where she was sitting before a giant old-fashioned television that must have been brought in from somewhere else in the house because it was so fat and bulky. There was no way we could have missed it when we first entered. "How was your nap?" she asked, lifting a silver platter full of tiny, delicately decorated sweets. "Whoa, what are those?" Pita's eyes sparkled with delight. She was all but devouring the baby cakes on the platter. "Petite fours," Cecilia said, smiling indulgently at the expression of Pita's face. "Try a chocolate one. They're my favorites." I thought about asking Cecilia if she had a phone we could use, but the reporter's somber face on the television screen caught my attention. "What are you watching?" I asked. I popped a creamy petite four in my mouth. It melted away too quickly, leaving a soothing, minty aftertaste that made me want more. "Oh, listen to this. It's coming on again." Cecilia turned up the volume on the television. "They've been running your story on the news all day." At her words, the girls abandoned the tray of petite fours and scrambled to sit in front of the television. I fell onto the nearest couch and listened as the words "Story in Development" scrolled across the screen in Spanish and an ominous tune began to play in the background. The first segment of the news was an interview with Inés and Zaragoza. Both women seemed horrified at the idea that they had been deceived by the 5 little girls who seemed to be so generous and pure of heart. They kept telling the reporter they didn't know why they believed us, that our mother knew where we were, and felt terrible for not calling the authorities or at least getting in touch with our mother. They talked about the dead man's return and the bride's hat they had given one of the girls as a token of their appreciation. But most of all, they worried about our safety and hoped we would be located soon. Feeling the blood rushing from my face, I looked around for the phone in the room, but I couldn't see one. I was just about to ask Cecilia if she even had one when the tray of petite fours started making its way around the room again. I took 2 and ate them absently. I knew I had to do something, call someone, but my mind was suddenly blank and I couldn't think what it was I needed to do. I couldn't even talk. In the second news segment, after a brief commercial break, a female reporter pointed to a wide-brimmed hat stuck on the branch of a tall mesquite while she informed the viewers that the missing girl's broken-down car had been abandoned less than a mile down the road from the location of the discarded hat. She reported that at the time, only terrible conclusions could be reached because there was no sign of the sisters. Our previous plan to return for Papa's car evaporated when we saw it being towed away on the television. According to the newscaster, it was being taken for forensic analysis. The third segment of the story was a previously taped interview with our mother. On the screen, Mama was crying and blowing her nose with a tissue. She wasn't making any sense, but she kept repeating the same thing in Spanish over and over again. She begged, "Please, please, if you have my daughters, please let them go. Let them come home. They're all I've got." At the sight of Mama completely undone on the news, Peter broke down and started crying silently. "Oh, I know you miss your mommy," Cecilia cooed as she reached out to pull Peter beside her on the couch. "Come here, darling. Everything's gonna be okay, I promise." After Peter settled down and stopped crying, we were all able to concentrate on the rest of the news broadcast. The fourth and final segment of the story in development was a live interview with the chief of police in Piedras Negras. Arnulfo Jimenez disclosed that the drowned man, Gabriel Perdido, was a known drug dealer and fugitive. The federales were investigating his death and the culprits behind it. Chief Jimenez speculated that the girls might have been abducted by the same individuals who killed Gabriel Perdido. They believed the suspects were operating under the assumption that the girls knew more than they really did about the dead man's drug dealings. They suspected the abductors were manipulating the girls' actions as they traveled through Mexico to return the body to his family in El Sacrificio. The kidnapping might have all been part of the ploy to flush out Gabriel's cohorts. We don't know for sure. Anything is possible, Chief Jimenez said, claiming it was imperative they find the missing girls and bring them home safely. He assured the reporter that his men were working night and day on the case, and he was positive justice would prevail. By the time our news story ran through, the local newscast was over. They had dedicated an entire show to us, a fact that mesmerized us into complete and utter silence. "Don't believe everything you hear," Cecilia said, shutting off the television set with one click of her remote control. "That Jimenez is a corrupt anaconda. His position on the force was just a front. He's suspected of being in business with the mafia. Only he's so cunning, so sly, no one can connect him to any of their crimes. But everybody knows he's working on both sides." "I don't understand," I whispered. "If he's such a bad guy, how can he say he wants to bring us home?" "Of course he wants to bring you home," Cecilia said, leaning over the coffee table to be close to us. "Don't you see? He wants to find you because he thinks you know more than you should about the drug dealer you brought home. It's a trick. You should avoid him at all costs." "I'm scared." Peter slid off the couch and scooted over to me on the floor. "Oh, honey, don't be scared," Cecilia said, leaving the comfort of the couch to slide down on the floor between Peter and me. "He can't hurt you. Not as long as you stay with me. I promise." "Why? You're trembling. Here, have some more petit fours. Sugar for my sweet one. There you go. Feel better?" Peter bit into a tiny sweet morsel of the cake and nodded even as she sniffed back her tears. Noticing the twins' fearful faces, Cecilia slid the tray of petit fours towards them. Soon, we were all sitting on the floor, sharing an enormous tray of petit fours. Funny how distress takes away anyone's appetite for real food, but when sweets are involved, all bets are off. Or maybe it was just us, because we sat here and ate every last petit four offered to us as we looked guiltily at each other for eating so greedily, while everyone worried about us back home. "At least Mama is home and not in jail," Velia whispered close to my ear, so the others wouldn't hear. "I'm not sure that's any comfort to her right now," Delia said from the other side of the coffee table. "She looked pretty torn up. Maybe we should call her." I've been meaning to ask if you have a phone we could use, I said, turning to look at Cecilia. Freedom is always a comfort, Cecilia said, ignoring my request and thrusting a chocolate petite four into my hand. Your mama is lucky to be free, after neglecting you all the way she did. What do you mean? Who says she neglected us? I asked, suspicion creeping into the corners of my mind, even as I put the chocolate treat in my mouth. I shook my head, trying to remember if any of us had spoken rudely about Mama, but my thoughts were cloudy, eerily void of memory, a fact that stupefied me. Biting into a tiny square-covered cake, I gave each of the girls the evil eye, letting them know Mama was not a topic that we needed to discuss, not with a perfect stranger like Cecilia. I mean, I don't know exactly what's happened or why you are traveling alone, Cecilia started, blinking nervously as she spoke, but I know if you were my daughters, I'd never part with you. If you were my daughters, you'd be safe at home, eating delicious things I'd baked and wearing nice, beautiful clothes I'd made. I sew the most exquisite dresses. If you were my daughters, I'd dress you up like pretty little China dolls. Well, we're not the dress-up types, I said, picking up another sugary petite four and biting into it to stop myself from defending Mama's honor to the point of being rude to our hostess. After we ate, we started to drift into a sedate sleepiness again. All I could think is that we were so emotionally drained from listening to the news and worrying about Mama that even sugar wasn't able to keep us up. And so we drifted into the deliciously dreamy stage before falling completely asleep. Seeing us lolling our heads like droopy violets, Cecilia told us to go upstairs and pick out a bedroom to sleep in. Go on now, Cecilia insisted. You need your rest. We really need to get going, I said, my eyelids resting heavily over my eyes. We need to get to our abuelita's house. What you need is a long, relaxing bath. Come on, I will clear your heads. Cecilia got up and started for the stairs. We bathed in luxury. Cecilia, singing harmoniously as she went, filled all 3 tubs in the upstairs bathroom with bubbles. We dozed blissfully in the scented water until we looked like prunes, and then, because we could hardly walk from the drowsiness brought on by those hot, delicious baths, we headed right to bed. Peter slept with Juanita in a lusciously decorated pink bedroom, while the twins shared a sunny yellow room. I picked a heavenly blue master bedroom with a king-size bed and French double doors. All those little windows in the French doors allowed the shimmer of moonlight to come in and kiss everything in the room with a glittering silver dust. After my bath, I slipped between the soft, crisp bed sheets, happy and content. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't pray for Papa to come home. I didn't pray for Mama to start paying attention to us either. I didn't even pray for my sisters, because somehow I knew we were all going to be all right. For the first time in a very long time, I thanked God for a warm, comfortable bed and a nice, safe home. I awakened in the middle of the night. Moonlight streamed in through the window, and though my vision was hazy, I could see the curtains billowing back and forth as mal-air came into the room in mischievous gusts of wind that toyed with my senses as they entered my lungs and played with my sanity. Going, never again. Home is an illusion. Home is where you've never been. Never again, never again. El mal-air said as it spoke to me, whispering and sighing, murmuring incoherent things, jumbled words, rambling thoughts I could not understand. Remembering where I was, I tried to get up and go look for Cecilia, but I couldn't focus, much less keep my eyes open. When I tried sitting up, my head spun and I fell back on the bed, dead weight on my pillows. That's when I finally understood what was going on. Something's wrong, I whispered. I went through the events of the day in my mind and realized that Cecilia never promised she would help us get to Hacienda Dorada. She'd acted so kindly towards us, but her lack of interest in our plight, our need to get to Abuelita's house, frightened me. But wasn't it a given? She knew what we were going through. She showed us the TV news, right? I tried to clear my head. Wake up. You have to get out of here. My voice sounded like a distant storm dying, waning in my ears. I tried to pick up my hand, to touch my head, to reach the ear pendant, but my hands were made of lead. My arms were wooden. Llorona, I called out in a breathless voice. Can you hear me, Llorona? Something's wrong. Llorona, please, help me.